All right, we're gonna clean up some wheels on this Cayenne Turbo. One of the things I wanna talk about is we all have a wheel bucket, right? You got all your brushes, all different things in here. I see far too often guys are putting car soap in here. TRX is what we're gonna be using all over the wheel faces, in the barrels, on the rubber. So go ahead and put TRX in to your wheel bucket. So we're gonna put a couple ounces. Look, we don't measure here. A couple ounces, you know what it looks like. So then we're just gonna foam it up. And as you can see, plenty of foam, okay? That's lubrication. That's a properly done wheel bucket. Now when I pull this out, I have TRX on it instead of car soap, something that's pH neutral. It's not gonna give me any bite on the wheel. There's gonna be a lot of people that tell you to rinse the wheel first. Obviously, if the wheel's hot, let it cool down, all those kinds of things. But we have a lot of dirt and grime around here. We also have some grime on the inside of the wheel. What I like to do is almost what you would call a pre-soak. I'm just trying to make my life a little easier, okay? When you rinse it off, you start to dilute your chemical. You mean rinse it first, you know what I mean? So, again, if these needed fuego, if these needed an iron decontamination, that's different. These don't really need an iron decontamination. They're in decent shape. They definitely need a cleanup. But what I'm doing here is I'm just doing a pre-soak. I'm not even gonna touch this with the brush. The other thing I see a lot of times is guys don't get there. Again, if you have a foamer, it's different, but guys don't get all the way back in the barrel with the chemical, okay? So I can pre-soak the fender lip and the wheel well. And the other thing is let the chemical work for you. Notice I'm not in a real hurry to rinse this off. Inside the fender, we got the rubber, we got the wheel itself. A lot of guys just don't let it soak. This first little round, I'm not worried about my wheel brush or anything like that. I'm just kind of letting it. This would be like pre-rinse. For me, one of the things that people do is when they pre-rinse, they don't have any chemical on there. That's good for some people, but if this is my car, this is kind of my style of doing it, especially if I'm taking care of like Lambo rims or something like that, you know, which we do a lot at my shop. A lot of people just don't use the chemical to their advantage. And so now we've let this soak. So let's go ahead and clean this up a little bit. Now that's essentially our pre-rinse. A lot of guys just do it with water. To me, I might as well let some chemical take some of my elbow grease out here. So now we're gonna go back in, and by the time we go back in with this chemical, we're gonna do two things. I think this is important. I'm not trying to mar up wheels. You know, we got a lot of black painted wheels and stuff now, and they're really sensitive. So I like my pre-rinse to have a little bite to it and do a little TRX before I do my pre-rinse, right? And so now we're gonna give it a thorough clean. And I think you only need really two types of wheel brushes. I like these, whatever these barrel brushes are. I see a lot of guys when they get started in their career, they miss a lot of stuff, right? We've all seen that. The key is to always start at 12 o'clock and then go clockwise. The other thing is you're gonna work back towards where you just were and where you're going, okay? I'm gonna go in here, I'm gonna rinse this off a bit. If you want to rinse it off, if you have really dirty rims, one of the things you can do during your detail, just go ahead and give it a pre-rinse, then go back into your bucket. So I can see where I was at, which is right here. You're gonna see I'm not going straight back. I'm going all three directions. So I go in, to the right, to the left, and I'm always gonna be crisscrossing where I'm going and where I'm headed. And I think one of the things people need to realize is that pre-rinse, the way that I did it, this is a very easy process now. A lot of people that just use water, they just leave a lot behind. So the reason I don't just go in and rinse with water is because chemical is our friend. Now, not all chemicals are your friend, but TRX is your friend, Fuego is your friend. And so now I've started at 12 o'clock, I know where I need to finish. Then here's the next kind of brush that I like. Some kind of wheel, lug, spoke, those types of brushes, whichever one you like. We have some in the store. Is start in and around 12 o'clock here. Now the good thing is, because we used TRX on the pre-rinse properly without diluting it with the rinse water, this stuff's pretty clean. right? We've already got it situated where this is a pretty easy process, to be completely honest. You know, the other thing I probably would do with something that has this many different spokes and stuff like that is take an old wash mitt or a wash mitt you don't really love to use on the paint and just put it in your wheel bucket. You know, I see guys use those finger mitts and things like that. That works too. I see too many guys just, now if you have coated rims or something like that, then obviously just a quick rinse, or you have carbon ceramics or something like that. That's all good. Get this caliper as well as we can. Let's give it a final rinse here. All right, so we're gonna clean up the rubber, fender wells, all those kinds of things. Now, we all know, I think you can all agree with this, these carpeted liners are some of the worst things ever put on a car. Number one, they look dirty. They don't deaden sound all that much. So spray TRX, take your dedicated rubber and tire brush you like. And as you can see, one thing I like about TRX personally is how much it foams up when I'm cleaning. I like to do my best to go one tread in on the tires. So a lot of guys have problems dressing tires. If you ever notice, they're just doing this part of the tire. They're always like right here on just the edge, right? Go up and over, one tread deep, and you'll get a much better clean. Then you can dress the tire all the way around. Here's the other part. You got a lot of lips on tires now. And a lot of guys miss it and they kind of look dirty at the end of the detail. So go ahead and run your brush inside that lip. I know you guys have all dealt with that. So the tire has kind of been rinsed a couple times, TRX'd. So I'm gonna go ahead and take my easy detail brush and I'm just gonna get up in the fender well here. This is really nice, especially if you have tight, you got low pro tires, you kind of have very little space. Just take this TRX out of this bucket with your favorite wheel brush and kind of get it in there. And so we got a pretty nice little cleanup here. And again, this is kind of like basic maintenance to me. This is what a lot of people, when you want your car to look a certain way every time, this is the kind of step I'm gonna go through on my wheels, tires, fender wells, and just keep everything looking pretty dialed. You'll be pretty amazed. I know we don't really talk about fender wells, but you'll be amazed at just doing that process every time you clean a car, just getting up in there. Like, you can't believe the amount of dirt and grime and stuff that comes out. Like, there's a bunch of TRX in there now. I've scrubbed it. I've used all that. It really looks pretty good. All right, let me give you a little tip here. How I would kind of finish this, and again, this is just general maintenance. Every day, ready to go. Want my wheels, tires, that area to look dialed all the time. I'm gonna grab myself some spray coat. Okay, I get it. We still have to wash the paint and whatnot, but this is kind of one of the things that'll make cleanup easier. Even if you have coated rims, if you have anything like that, to me, this is the no-brainer, is get a little spray coat on here. Remember, this is spray activated, so let it soak in for a little, couple seconds. So we went from beat up wheels, now you can see we got water behavior protected. I think this is a great basic start to understanding what to do, but it all starts with pre-rinsing a little differently than everyone else. Don't just go in and spray water, let some chemical work. Again, you can see the water's already running off. And so this to me is a basic, simple process that you can follow 100% of the time for your maintenance, and your vehicle will look perfect. And now we got a protected rim on top of it. So, of course, we'll dry it at the end, and we'll kind of show you the final results. You know, one of the crazy things is, Marty, you don't really see a lot of three-piece wheels anymore. You know, we're sitting here working on this Porsche Cayenne. We got a three-piece wheel. You know, they're just not as common. You know, you used to see them, you know, on Range Rovers and all those kinds of different things. You know, but they still have this terrible felt liner inside the wheel well. It's got to be one of the first things you notice, right?
Yeah, when I walked up, I did. At first I went, wow, okay, cool wheel. And you're right. I wish they would have done black here on the inlay.
Yeah, but it just looked
cool.
a lot better. And this is one of those things that's kind of like holding on from the past, you know what I mean? These like chrome lips were a real big thing in the three-piece world. But one of the things, you know, you notice is you have so many cars now, so many SUVs, Lamborghini Urus with like the biggest caliper situation. You know, you get into, we're on a Porsche here, Porsche GT3, things like that. One of the crazy things is how little space you have between the caliper and the wheel now, right? And so you need all the tools in your arsenal. You also need a good chemical. You need all those different types of things, but you need a lot of brushes now, you know, and I think a lot of guys just try to put a square peg in a round hole and kind of make their life more difficult. I kind of like going in with something a little bit smaller because we have so many different spokes here. If this is sort of like 6 or 7, you know, 7-star rim or wheels, I think I'd feel a little bit differently.
Yeah.
I know we got this boar's hair brush, you know, something like this. You kind of look at that world, and this would make things a little faster, but the problem is I feel like I can't get all the way in the lip sometimes. For me personally, it's just one of those things, you know, and I hate that banging sound, you know what I mean? I always think I'm gonna nick up a rim. I don't know, maybe it's just because you work on enough cars that are expensive enough, you're like, man, the last thing I wanna do is nick up a rim.
See, but I've always heard these brushes, right? You hear these going in and out, right? Like you heard right there, and you hear it going clank, clank, and you hear it going
Yeah.
And I've always, that's why I told you, right? Like it was a little bit for me to get used to these.
Well, the thing is the tip, right? So if the black cover comes off the tip of those things, you gotta like really be careful, and you gotta actually probably just replace them. I do like this brush, but like I said, it's kind of, because you have so many of these little spots and you can kind of hear it banging around, something about that just makes me uneasy. Maybe it's all the black painted rims now, you know, and I'm so worried about doing that. And that's probably what we see mostly at my shop and in my detail business, is we see a lot of black gloss, you know, flat black, those types of things. But I'm glad we got this car in here, because you just don't see these types of rims very often.
No, you don't. All right, so do I need to be concerned while I'm going through, and I've got this, you know, I've got some polished aluminum here.
Yeah.
Right, so not everybody understands polished aluminum. You might think it for a second, wow, I've got a chrome inlay. Anything particular with these brushes while I'm going through? I've got plenty of TRX out on it, so I shouldn't have any problems, right?
Yeah, you won't really have any problems. I mean, obviously, if you're working in direct sunlight or something like that, you know, you need to be concerned. But, you know, these are only going to look great after a polish, right? If you're really that concerned, I always say one thing: just use car soap. You know, just use a shampoo. If you're that concerned about your wheels, if you have, you know, an aluminum finish, you know, to me, that's the best thing you can do if you're that concerned. But, you know, at the end of the day, this came in, this needed some love. You don't have a choice but to use something like TRX, or you're not going to get the thing clean at all. It's not like it was in bad shape, but it definitely needed some love, you know what I mean?